It's Lambo.
At the bottom right from Alter, he's the red Protoss, now looking to try and secure his spot in fourth with a few matches, potentially make sure that he will advance on to group stages. Ladies and gentlemen, it's PtitDrogo. And fun fact, in high school, in my French class, had to do a presentation about a famous French person, and I had actually managed to convince my teacher to let me do PtitDrogo.
So you had all these people talking about Napoleon and De Gaulle, and Baby Titan pops up. He says, "Folks, let me tell you about the DreamHack champion PtitDrogo, the little druggist."
Mm-hmm. And it was entirely in French. I was very, very proud of it. And it was then I realized how truly big of a nerd I was, because nothing else interested me. I just wanted to talk about professional gamers.
And when I was in high school, I did everything I could to hide how much of a nerd. It didn't work, unsuccessful in the extreme. But I tried to hide how much of a nerd I was,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I played basketball. I was like, oh yes, look at me. I'm not nerdy. I might be a theater kid, but I played basketball. I'm into sports. And then over time, eventually everyone realized if they just talked to me that was completely untrue.
Yeah, I became the robot kid. It's just like, oh yeah, you want to talk about robotics or whatever? Yeah, go talk to Philip. It's worked out. I'm still doing robots, and I'm still casting StarCraft. I got a couple friends into it, and I think I'm the only one that's left, which is unfortunate. But anyway, Probe Scout here, third base coming down from Lambo. I don't think, Titan, that this is going to be a series where we can look at one player and say, yeah, they're going to do something bonkers. Yeah, Lambo has been the progenitor of ZVP for the last year or so with those Queen Walks. But now that Queen Walks are not nearly as much of a thing, I'm interested to see how he looks to deal with this, the modern PvZ that we're seeing that Hero and Creator have been pushing forward so hard.
Yeah, and I think both these players especially are very, very reliant on their timings. Lambo, we all know him for making builds, for creating these strategies that hit very, very specific timings that take advantage of when your opponent is at their weakest. And that's something that we've seen Protoss have started to get better and better at, is tightening up those gaps with the fast transitions and with the actual tech choices. But interestingly enough, we are going to see a Void Ray first. This is the first Void Ray we have seen it today.
Is that no, there was no Void Ray within DNS game. Yeah, you're right. It's something that we've been able to avoid until now, but here we are.
And now that it's here, I can't feel that my day is inexplicably ruined, but there's an Oracle follow-up, so everything will be better. But yeah, and for PtitDrogo, he has always been a player that is just extremely solid in his timings. Upgrades will always be there for him. He knows exactly what unit compositions he needs in order to maneuver a game into a win. This is really going to be a battle of just straight up macro and micro skills. Like, who can do better in the moment? As here we go, Oracle going on in. Snipes 2 takes a little bit of damage, but we'll get on it. It was a nice morph from Lambo to stop those other two drones from going down.
Yep, absolutely. He did a great job morbing out of there. And that was horrendous and totally unimportant. But okay, third base on the way here for Drogo. We are seeing him again. He's going to go for that second Oracle. Void Ray just defensively, maybe worried about Lambo going Rainbow and doing something a little bit odd in this game. But Lambo, he's got nothing. Lair on the way, Roach Warren, your normal stuff. Nothing really out of the ordinary. And now that means we get to move into the mid game. And remember, the last time we saw this map in VVZ, it did look like the Protoss was supposed to lose. Hearthstone was just that much better than Hate Me that it was okay.
Yeah, it was really a situation of Hearthstone knowing how to play those situations, and Hate Me obviously not having a lot of experience and I think not handling it the best. And that will happen. Hearthstone, just the skill really shining through. But here, if Lambo gets an advantage, he's a player who knows how to play with advantages. He invented the Queen Walk. He knows how much damage you need to get for something to be worthwhile. honestly, Lambo is one of the smartest players in StarCraft 2.
Yeah, we have two players that really are that that mentor, not mentor in terms of, oh, let me take you under my wing and teach you to be better, because they're both competitors, but in terms of the people that really just do move their race forward. We have Ryung in Korea, and we have Lambo in Europe. I mean, even in those times where maybe Lambo, his mentality is not quite there, a couple workers go down, but when his mentality is not quite there, or mechanically he's not feeling all that confident, we still see him. He's able to coach, say, Raynor into a world championship, or 7 games. I believe he was helping out Raynor once he got knocked out of Katowice as well. But here comes the push from Drogo. There is no Twilight. There is no Blink. It is just Oracles and Stalkers at this weird timing, because Lambo, well, at least Drogo was trying to convince Lambo that this was a different style than what it is. Lambo has absolutely nothing here. Nothing whatsoever. The Queens are going to try to transfuse, do what they can. Force fields, they say no to that one. Rave Roach is on the way, but all the defenses of Lambo are gone. When we're looking at a Protoss all in, Titan, we're looking at the fact it's like, okay, the Zerg is equal in army supply. That means the Protoss is ahead. Drogo started this fight up 20. He pulled the wool over Lambo's eyes. In the extreme, pulled the wool over my eyes too. And this push coming in here, I do not see a way that Lambo stops it.
Yeah, I mean, it was so well disguised. 3 oracles out, everything looks standard. The third base, additional gates. Lambo's like, okay, this is all standard. But then Drogo just says, hey, I'll walk across the map a bit sooner than you might expect. I'm not waiting for +1. I'm not waiting for Blink. I'm just going to fight with the units that I have available. And that's going to be the third base going down. 13 drones fall. And this has already been an insane amount of damage. Lambo does have a 4th established, but even with that, he has lost so much.
He really has. And we aren't seeing Drogo transition out of this, though. He says, I think I can do more. He checks the 4th base position, number 1. He says, okay, look, you're not on the 12 o'clock position, where we do see Zergs tend to take it when they take the 3rd where it is. So he now knows where the 4th base is, if that is a possibility. One Stalker gets a little low off the biles, but not much more than that. And okay, now we're seeing the transition. Twilight on the way, Forge on the way, as Drogo looks to rotate on over. Actually, he doesn't even. Looks like he's going to go back home.
As Oracle is still going to look to scout out and see where this army is. Drogo, I think, pretty happy with the damage he got. Will try and stick around for a little bit longer, but I don't think he can commit much further without, of course, risking pretty much putting all of the onus on his micro in this fight. And without Blink, without any of those upgrades, it makes it a lot harder for these Stalkers to survive, but still is going to look for it. I mean, there's no charge on these Zealots, and they're just going to walk forward and try and soak up some damage. The Guardian Shield does go down. Force fields not being popped just yet. Drogo being very, very patient. There we go. Finally throws down a few force fields. Lambo immediate with those corrosive biles.
Lambo has been able to actually build a bit better of an army now, because he is producing on 3 bases once again. But this army from Drogo, I mean, look, he has Blink on the way. He has +1 on the way. He doesn't need to kill with this as long as he trades decently enough. So he's going to sit on the edge of creep. He's going to sit on the edge of the engagement range from Lambo at this point. Looks like now he says, okay, time to back up just a little bit. Maybe get some more Immortals. Actually, I like this. Look, he's adding more Oracles into this game for more stasis, more harassment, whatever it is. And even it's a great defensive tool. If we do see all these Ravagers run across the map, well, Oracles deal with that one pretty well. So
Man,
if we do... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can see how annoying the Oracle is to deal with. Lambo lost a lot of queens. He lost all of his queens, in fact, in that push. Has been rebuilding them. But the Roach Ravager army can't really deal with the Oracle. So you're constantly going to have revelations. You're constantly going to know where they are. As well, it's going to be a 4th Nexus for PtitDrogo. It's at the same time as his opponent. And you never like to see that as a Zerg. And you also never like to see the fact that you're even on army supply and you're working with Roach Ravager. And Bayo, correct me if I'm wrong, but Roach Ravager, what did they say about Roach Ravager supply?
It's inflated. You have a Ravager that's worth 3 supply. Roaches are worth 2, and they're fairly... I mean, okay, in fairness, Ravager is worth... It costs as much as a Muta, so you're fine there in terms of maybe cost per value. Mutas are 2 supply, Ravagers are 3, but certainly the Roaches are just... They are not efficient for their supply. The whole point is you get a lot more of them. And on top of that, not only is this an inflated supply, when we look at tons and tons of Blink Stalkers, bonus damage to armor is a wonderful thing. Stalkers fight Roaches incredibly well.
Yes, I mean, PtitDrogo is just posturing. He's up in army supply, and this balloon of Roach Ravager, it can fight in small bursts, but as soon as it comes down to a prolonged engagement, the Blink Stalkers will just have so much more value. Charge is not done quite yet, but Drogo is still looking to posture here. He says, listen, I have so much. I think I can take this. That's some great force fields to delay the Banelings from getting on in. Corrosive Biles do get a little bit of value. Stasis Ward's being set up, and Lambo doing a good job holding off the Protoss, but the issue is, you're just holding off the Protoss. PtitDrogo is taking advantages in other places.
It's the age-old question. I'm doing what I can to not lose, but am I doing what I can to win? Lambo, he's doing a decent job at advancing his tech, and look at this. He's got a big surround happening here. Stasis Trap doesn't find much of anything. Baneling's looking to crash on in, but Force Fields will save the day for now. Drogo still got plenty of supply. The Biles will not land. Drogo going to back up, look for that reset, and that big flank that Lambo was looking for, it looked like maybe it had a little bit of room to make something happen, but all the Banelings died, and it did not kill enough. So Drogo maintains this position on the map, going to kill those Lings as they pop out of the stasis, and the game, the powerful play, Titan, it does go on.
Yep, and it's just a massive amount of Stalkers. I mean, 35 Stalkers available here for Drogo, who's now trying to take this fight. Blink forward. Does take a bit of damage here with these Biles, and Lambo being so good at using these Biles to zone out units as now charge is done. The Stalkers, though, they're gonna have to blink back because, I mean, Lambo's trying to collapse. He's ahead in supply now as the blink forwards are gonna come through. Most of the Banelings are gone. Drogo thinks he has enough, but that might be a miscalculation as the Ravagers, they have +2, and PtitDrogo does not.
No, he does not. It's such an anti-time. He blinks into the second round of Banes and Biles. And this game that Drogo has been leading from wire to wire ever since that push moved in and killed the third base, I don't think he is anymore. He is down half the army supply of his opponent. He has his +2 now, but he missed that timing. Storm is on the way eventually, but it will not be ready for this push coming in from Lambo. It's not like Drogo's on 5 bases. That's one of the things you look to do when you play the suppression style, and he's just not there. So it's 4 bases to 4. The Banelings, they look to come crashing on in. Bile's not really going to land. It's a lot of Ravagers, though, and Ravagers, they do need something to buffer for them. So here come the rest of the Roaches. Lings streaming across the map here. Shield batteries are doing what they can, and shield battery overcharge is always going to be rather nice. We've seen one Zerg already break their face on the might of a defensive Protoss. We're going to have to see whether Lambo does the same or whether he's going to be able to push on through here because the Archons are starting to fall. The Immortals, though, standing strong. Biles land on top of some of these High Templar. The army of Lambo is starting to fall apart a bit, though, and Drogo, he makes this hold happen.
Yeah, and it's so close. Both players' supply drops so much, and you see that Lambo was, I mean, pretty much all in. He's only now adding on more drones, but he did not drone his 4th base at all. He's continuing to produce Roaches, and it's more Archons in production. It's more Immortals. This is almost exactly what we saw in that Hearthstone Hate Me series, where just the value of this Protoss army cannot be understated against the Roach Ravager. Lambo, he's going to set up a Baneling run by, but look at this PtitDrogo. He's already got SimCity set up. He's ready to play defensive.
And one thing I want to point out, we talked about the Hearthstone Hate Me series, and especially Game 2, where we looked at just insane resources loss differential. We're at around 1,000, 2,000 in the favor of Drogo, just a little bit still. So from that perspective, I mean, we're not seeing this game where Hearthstone keeps holding and the trades get really bad, and you're like, okay, this is going to be fine. This is a game where Drogo really has not been trading that much better. On the flip side, Lambo's economy, not quite as good as Hate Me's was. So he doesn't have this, well, I'm building it massively and I don't care about those trades. He is getting his 5th base up, though. Drogo looks like he wants to get his 5th base eventually. And Lambo, he's going to be forced to cancel this one, I think. So the game goes on. There we go. There's that cancel once again. And the thing I'm looking for now is for Lambo to find a way to tech out of this. Because Roach Ravager Ling Bane is a powerful style Titan. It can kill a lot of stuff. But eventually, as the Protoss starts to move into +3, into shield upgrades, into armor upgrades, into their next level of tech, you do want something a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's exactly what PtitDrogo is looking for. +3 Archons, +3 Immortals. Those are units that you don't really fight against evenly. They will absolutely shred through any Zerg army that is on the ground. As we are going to see Lambo here try and find a run by onto that building 5th, but cannons are going to sway it until the Banelings are here. Ooh, Zealot's going to mostly be able to stop this, and sure, the stack defense goes down, but as Drogo, you can afford that. They'll just rebuild it back up, and really nothing lost there in the end for the Protoss player who's looking to try and extend. I mean, not even at this lead, though, because I think Lambo mostly managed to equalize this game.
I'll buy that one. I mean, I think for a moment he was pretty heavily ahead, and then he crashed his face into shield batteries and shield battery overcharge and cannons and immortals, and it was like, okay, well, you know, we've seen some Zergs die to that today. But Lambo is teching out of this now. We have Hive on the way. We have a Spire on the way. With how this is timing up, it looks like he does want to move into Broodlords. And Titan, there is not a unit that I can think of that deals with Immortals and Archons better than a Broodlord. Or, like, actually, well, not a single Broodlord, but, you know, you give me 10.
Yeah, but the issue is Lambo going to have the time, as it's a massive warp in here at the 5th base. The Banelings are going to go down to Storms. There's no more splash damage. And now look at this army. It's 8 Archons. They have +3. Your Lings just absolutely melt against everything that is here. The 5th base is going to go down. 21, 23 drones end up falling. And now this round's going to come through. But the Storms are too good. PtitDrogo is going to win game 1.
I'm going to pretend I understand exactly what happened in that game. I'm going to give you... Actually, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to... And you at home are going to assume that that was brilliant analysis about why exactly Drogo won in that timing and why Lambo was able to make it so close. Because, honestly, folks, that game felt like it was one that Drogo should have just won. And then it felt like a game that Lambo, after he made the hold, should have just won. And then it just went on for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I think the main thing was you're trading fairly evenly up until the point where Drogo gets Blink Stalkers, is able to make some convincing pushes, and then we start to see PtitDrogo pull ahead. He loses one fight. Lambo is going to push that, but the fact that you don't kill the Protoss there and you haven't droned up your 4th means that the entire time that after that point, Lambo is trying to redrone, add on more bases, and he's not really improving his army, while PtitDrogo, he's fine. He's on 4 bases. He can add a 5th. He has +3 on the way. His army technicality did not take any losses. He didn't lose those important high-tech units. And as Protoss, retaining those units is the most important part to being able to make that large attack with +3 that's eventually going to be able to run over your opponent.
Absolutely. So we're going to have to see. Maybe we get something a little bit different in this game. Maybe Lambo is able to get into that mid-game without losing his 3rd and off a random Stalkers. Well, I don't know. But I do know that it is 2,000 atmospheres in game number 2, and that makes me excited. It's a standard map. Let's get into it. In the upper right now, folks, in the blue. He is down 1 game in this series. He had to come back, but it was not quite enough for the Shopify Rebellion. His name is Lambo.
And in the bottom left, getting the win in game 1, looking here to confirm his spot in the top 3 from Alter. It's PtitDrogo. And you said you're happy we're on to a more standard map. Of course, Berlingrad, a bit of a harder map there for the Zerg, but we're going to be seeing now what Lambo can do on 2K atmospheres. This is your stock standard. This is your map that everyone looks at and they say, yeah, I think every race has an equal footing on this map.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I wouldn't give any particular lead one way or the other. I'm also going to say, as we look at what Drogo did in that last game, that's not a build we see all that often. I don't think you see it on a map like 2,000 Atmospheres. It was absolutely something that leveraged the fact that he could just move out, just at the very beginning, just move out, and get across the map before Lambo was really aware of what was happening on 2,000 Atmospheres, or say a Glittering, or a Hardwire in particular. You have more time once the Protoss moves out to react to it. So I don't know that we see that idea from Drogo once again. And certainly now that Lambo has cut his teeth on it, has had some ideas, maybe this wasn't in his prep. Well, I'm excited to see what Drogo has in store for us, because that game 1, as you said, It's not normal.
Yeah, I mean, the off-timing attack from Drogo, that's what really catches Lambo off. When you're a player who knows the ins and outs of these matchups and what the timings are supposed to be, you're never going to expect the Protoss to just walk across the map with a whole bunch of Blink Stalkers without upgrades and, some Immortals and the Sentries. And Lambo was completely unprepared. That was not a timing that he was scouting for. It was nothing that he was prepared to deal with. And so it all, of course, snowballed from that third. Lambo made it close. He found some fights, but that was not enough to overcome the difference that made. Because he was essentially, again, he was all in when he made that attack on Drogo's fourth.
That he was. He did almost break through, but there's something, Titan, that Protoss players have learned for a while. It's why we don't see a lot of action until 4 bases in PvP normally. And that is that shield batteries are pretty damn good. But we said we wanted to see something different from Drogo. He already had 1 game of that. Well, how do you feel about disruptor drops, Mr. Titan?
I haven't seen them in a while, and I'm excited because this is always a strategy that someone somewhere is going to pull out. Once every 1 or 2 months in a pro game, you'll see it. And sometimes it goes magnificently. Other times, just a regular game off of it. But I'm very, very excited to see what Drogo is going to be able to do with this disruptor drop and how he's going to really manage it. There we go. More prism speed, disruptors on the way. And again, Lambo, are you going to be prepared for this? Because Drogo, he's not playing standard Protoss like Lambo would expect. He's not using these standard timings or builds. And that's, if there's a player who is smart, who can read everything standard, knows the build orders, knows the timings, just don't use them.
So this is interesting coming in from Lambo here. This is a very quick Roach War, and he started at about 15-20 seconds earlier, maybe on the idea that this is some sort of adept pressure, and he's building a lot of Lings right now to maybe try to put pressure on the third. We're already looking at 21 Lings on the map, but again, any sort of read that Lambo may have that this is a ground tech, some aggression, it's actually just not true, as you said. So, Warp Prism speed just about done. Disruptors are here, and behind this, Drogo is going into that Twilight tech, as we would expect. We're not going to see some weird Skytoss transition out of that, but Twilight +1, whether this is Glaives, most likely this is going to be Blink. And the question now is whether Lambo is going to be prepared. So he's started to realize that this is not going to be ground pressure. We are seeing more drones on the field, but Titan, does this get the damage that Drogo is looking for?
Well, look at this. Ling's already here. It's going to deny it. The shot goes out, and it's, not getting that much value so far. A good pullback from Lambo. Lings don't go down. The Queen gets low, but Transfusion is immediately popped. And so far, the Disruptor's not finding any value, but Blinking +1 is going to be the follow-up. So while Drogo is, committing the tech to this, it's not banking everything on this getting damage. He does have that follow-up.
He does have that follow-up, but saying he's not banking on this getting damage is, I think that's a little bit incorrect. It's a similar idea to when you go triple Oracle. Oh, no, you got to be careful, though. Do not run over those queens too long. Whew. 18 HP, getting very low there. Warp Prism's not going to have nearly as much value in the middle term now. But you do want to get something done. You want to kill maybe 6 workers, maybe more, snipe down some queens. By getting literally nothing done, I would like to point out that 2 Lings have died, but they were scouting Lings. Doesn't really matter. The fact that that's all that has died this game, it means Lambo is going to be able to grow at a much stronger pace than Drogo wants. It means that this next level of pressure from Drogo with his Blinking +1 and with these Disruptors is going to have to fight through a lot more stuff to be effective.
Yeah, and of course the one saving grace of Disruptors is that you might still be able to find value with them the longer you have them, but not getting any damage, as you said. Lambo, he will start to grow. 4th base, Spire on the way. Lambo is really going to be allowed to do whatever he wants. He's already ahead on workers. In comparison to the Protoss, Drogo is getting his own 4th in good time, but it is just slightly delayed. If this was a standard game where Drogo is playing straight up macro and you want to just be a little bit greedy, of course you'd want that 4th to go down around probably the 6-minute mark. But here we go. It's going to be a slight push, looking to push back some of this creep, maybe find some damage with the Disruptors. The first shot's going to go out, not going to find anything. Actually finds a Stalker and gets a Ravager, but I think somehow Drogo here almost finding negative value with these Disruptors.
What do you mean? Ravager's like worth the Muta and Stalker's cheaper. It's fine. It's okay. You really don't want to kill your own army here. But now the Stalkers, they blink forward here. Is a Lambo prepared for this? The supplies are fairly nice. Disruptor shots going to knock down some of these Banes. Now looking to run on forward. Not getting much. Last second splits there from Lambo are going to be pretty fantastic. And he really is getting nothing done with these Disruptors outside of forcing Lambo to run backwards to micro backwards, which is its own reward in some ways. There's a couple Stalkers blink forward there. Not the rest of the army, though. Nice concave that Drogo has set up here. And if he gets one big shot, that probably ends the game. But as it stands, he will be able to knock his fourth base down. He's going to keep this pressure moving forward. And this is why this tech seems so powerful. We're going to see some Ravagers get canceled as well. Titan, Drogo is getting value here.
He is. The Blink Stalker's really making this work as Lambo's just going on in. He says, listen, I want to fight this straight up. The Disruptor's pulled back, though. One of them still remaining. Two have been sniped. As Drogo continuing to try and push this position, he's trying to make this attack work. He's already killed a base. Disruptor shot. The splits can't come through. 3 roaches go down. And now we're starting to see that value come out of these Disruptors. The more scrappy the fight gets, the better it is, because these Disruptors can continue to find those damage on unsplit roaches. +2 on the way for Drogo, but that's going to be a while out. Meanwhile, Lambo, he's been having to build so many units. He hasn't even started on additional upgrades. That means that eventually these Stalkers will be able to outtrade the roaches, but look out. Banelings and Ling is going to try and look for a counterattack. Luckily, Drogo has retreated in time.
That he has. So should be in position to deal with this Baneling run by. Do we have Baneling speed? We do. At the very least, there's that. I want to point out that there are no Baneling upgrades, though, so they're not going to hit quite as hard as you would like. Doesn't really matter for mineral lines necessarily. It's either +2 or nothing, but in terms of killing Stalkers. So here come the Banelings into the third base, but Drogo seems to be aware of this, pulling out. One Baneling going to get a connection to start. 6 workers go down as the probes, they're looking to run away, but there's nothing to block the wall. No quick warp in. It's just been brought more as the fight on the right side, but 18 workers go down in the mineral line, 21 in fact, and Drogo's forced to run away somewhere else. That push from Drogo in the mid game was good, but this is a problem now. He's only on 44 workers. His army supply not incredible. And yeah, sure, he's got his 4th base, but that doesn't matter if he's not mining from his 3rd or his 4th.
Yeah, the worker count down to 48 is just absolutely brutal. I mean, Lambo, there was just no cannons, and that was really where Drogo had an advantage in the last game. He had cannons at every single base, allowing him to stop these Baneling run-bys from getting damage, but now he doesn't have those. Lambo, he's going to start to just get so strong. More and more Baneling run-bys. Stalkers are already here, but even with that, it is just so much damage that Lambo is getting, and Drogo is continuing to fail to find anything with these Disruptors.
Would you say that Lambo is going Rambo?
This is looking like a very Rambo game, as it's all out action everywhere. Lambo now going to look for a frontal push onto this 3rd base, and Drogo, now he's down in supply, and this is where you want to be with Roach Ravagers. That Disruptor shot not really going to find value. That one is just dropped way too close to get sniped down. One more shot. Splits are decent enough, but you still lose a lot of roaches. I mean, Drogo, he still has a powerful army. It's +2 Blink Stalkers. They can always fight, but the Banelings are going to try and roll on in. Lambo, he just has so much, and he's going to chase this army down. Disruptor shot. The splits are just so good. And now the Stalkers are left open. And Lambo absolutely crushing through. Oh!
It's never over when Disruptors are on the field and Roaches and Ravagers are off creep. Those 7 workers do fall as it did. Man, you get those Banelings with the Disruptor, it is a very different story. Stalkers, they blink forward. They're leaving themselves a little bit open, but there are enough Disruptors now, Titan, to force Lambo back just a little bit. He got Aspire at some point, Lambo did, but he hasn't done anything with it. The trades are not quite good enough. Lambo's economy has never really felt like it's strong. Only 70 workers like this is, you don't really have a lot of resources to build up that bank. But Drogo, it's going to be a while now before he's able to go and actually pull himself out of this position to be able to move to be active on the map. Because Lambo, his creep sprint is fantastic. He's really starting to constrict things. An army on the left, run by on the right, getting set up here. The Biles will not land a start, but Drogo has to rotate over. He has to bring his Disruptors over. He cannot fight this army with just these Stalkers. So now that you know what this does, plenty of an opportunity for 30 Banes, 20 Banes, whatever it is, to run in. Good splits from Lambo, actually. Yeah, actually fantastic splits from Lambo, but it will not matter because all the Banelings do fall. Drogo needs this, though. It needs to keep happening.
Yeah, I mean, Drogo is somewhat managing to stabilize, but he's still only on 4 bases, 61 probes. He's started to mine off this 4th, and he has +3 on the way as well. Colossus now in production, and I think Colossus will be a good choice against the Zerglings. But it's all about if he can get into this hyper powerful Protoss army like we saw in the last game before Lambo is strong enough to just close out the game. And of course, that's what the disruptors are good for. They can delay. It's so hard to push and end a game as the Zerg. When you're Roach Ravager into Disruptor, it doesn't really work that well. And so Drogo, he still has a shot in this game. It is not over just yet, but Lambo, all the cards are in his basket. He's maxed out right now on 5 bases. Just needs to try and find an opening here against Drogo.
Yeah, I am a bit worried, though. We have 2 more Colossus on the way, making it to a grand total of 3, 6 disruptors on the map. And Lambo only just now getting that infestation pit, only just now getting ready to move into Lair or into Hive, which is where you want. I mean, Vipers are the ultimate answer to any sort of Robotech. But before then, as you're saying, Colossus, especially with this +3, they're going to deal with a lot of the stuff that Lambo has on the ground fairly easily. And Drogo, he doesn't have the hope of a 5th base in his mind necessarily. He may be able to get it eventually, but he is looking for that max out on +3 on all of these Colossus to the point where he can just deathball across the map and start to make it so that Lambo's bank that he certainly has, make sure that his production does not matter, because he's going to get on top of it. You will not have time to morph more Banes, will not have time to morph more Ravagers. And here comes the army of Lambo moving forward, says, okay, those are some Colossus on the map. He's happy that he's got his Hive. But now we're just going to have to see whether Drogo hits the timing before the Vipers are out and whether they're ready.
Yeah, the Hive, it's halfway done, but right now, Lambo is still not really going to have any answer for the tech units of the Protoss. 3 Colossus now on one side, 1 on the other. It's a very strong army that PtitDrogo is assembling. He has +3 now. Let's see if this attacking anything done, but Lambo just doesn't want to fight into this Protoss army, and as much as he's tried to split the map, he's tried to have 2 armies in 2 locations, PtitDrogo has done a great job of mirroring the movement of the Zerg and making sure not to leave any openings.
Lambo's just trying to buy time, man. He needs that Hive, he needs those Vipers, but Drogo, he has 4 Archons made now. Actually, oh yeah, he looks like he's going to send a probe out to take a 5th now that he's feeling confident. But, I mean, he is very close to maxing out. He's adding on those additional gateways, and I think we should see a push coming in from our Protoss hero soon enough. Here's going to move on a creep for the first time in an awfully long time. I mean, look how much of this map is purple. A couple stalkers blink forward, not really getting all that much outside of giving their life for the cause. And now here come the Banes. Disruptor shots all is just about everywhere. Is he going to get the Banes? No. Good splits from Lambo to Spart. We're just going to have to see a recall because the army is absolutely exposed. Yeah, the army that Drogo has made is fantastic, but no Archons to buffer for these Colossus. The Banelings crashing on in on top of the economy here as well, but the probes, they're going to be able to run out for now. Archons buffering for that one. Oh, looks like Drogo's going to be a holdout for now, but Lambo immediately remaxing here. 20 Roaches, 22 Lings on that production tab, and there is more where that came from. We talked about Lambo or Drogo trying to take the fight where Lambo's superior reinforcing ability would not matter. Well, he forced Drogo back onto Drogo's side of the map, then he traded out. But here comes Drogo now. He's going to get on top of this 6th base of Lambo. That one's going down. A couple workers fall. Lambo, though, he's setting up for a big fight as Drogo tries to retreat.
And look at all these Banelings. I mean, sure, it's +3 Colossus, it's +3 Archons, but does that matter when you have another surround set up? And this time, there's no running away. The Colossus are gonna fall. The Banelings roll in. And Lambo is looking to tie up the game. Drogo, all of his units are gone. The splits this entire game from Lambo have been fantastic. And now there's no more disruptors. Well, he can just kind of waltz on forward without a care in the world. This hatchery is not even going to go down. The Lingbane will be able to save it. And suddenly, PtitDrogo is at half the supply of his opponent.
Yep, not a care. Oh, Lambo's not paying attention. Oh, okay, you know what? It's not bringing Drogo back into this game, but it's something that was, Battle Report doesn't tell us exactly what that was, but that was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the resources lost, it started to equalize now with these losses that Drogo has taken. 2,300 minerals versus, or 20,000 versus 23,000 in favor of Drogo. But honestly, that's a lot closer than you'd like, especially 17 minutes into a game. Fifth Nexus is going to go down, and Lambo is going to look for an attack here, trying to snipe off the Disruptors. Is not going to be able to. But also the Disruptor shot's not finding too much value. There's a few more Zealots going to look for a run by, but Lambo absolutely on top of everything on 2,000 atmospheres.
We're really seeing the benefits of the fact that Lambo has been able to pin Drogo back for so long here on the map. Yeah, Drogo was able to clean out creep on the left side. He knocked the base down. Fantastic for the man. But that creep spread in the middle of the map, it makes it so hard for Drogo to get active, and more importantly, it makes it so hard for these Disruptors to be useful. There's a big flank coming in from everywhere. Again, the Disruptors are going to get recalled. Again, they do fall. And what do you got? 2 Archons, 1 Archon. That is the only bit of splash in this game. And the Biles are not really going to hit anything because it does not matter. Bailing's in the mineral line. 8 workers go down. Everything goes down. Lambo, he had to fight for it for a while. It was another long game, but at the end of the day, Drogo falls. Lambo ties it up. And folks, for the first time today, certainly, for the first time maybe in a while on the B stream, we have a game 3.
Yeah, and 2 incredibly close games. And at the end there, of course, I mean, I don't think there was enough left for Drogo for the Biles to even try and hit anything, but it was close nonetheless. A very, very good attempt from the Protoss, but we just see the strength of Lambo. You know, on 2,000 atmospheres, you pin down your opponent, you find the transitions that you need, and you have enough creep that when Drogo wants to push out with that +3, you can easily set up a surround and collapse on it every single time.
That you can. So, game number 3 now is going to be on Blackburn. I was going to say something about whose veto it was, but that doesn't matter because actually it's game 3 and no one picked Blackburn. Smartcaster here, folks. We have all the brains. No, we don't. Not at all. No brain. Maybe Titan has brains, but I'm certainly lacking.
It's very funny because Blackburn is in the weird state as a map where no one is going to pick it. You're not necessarily going to pick this map, but you're also not going to veto it. So usually if it goes to game 3, you end up seeing Blackburn because there are so many other maps that are much more polarized in terms of what races have strengths there. It's going to be interesting to see how PtitDrogo handles this map though, because the build in the first game, of course, you can't really use that again. Of course, you can try to and do something similar with an off timing attack, but you're going to be banking a lot on that because this map has a very short rush distance. If you do end up getting, you know, your army gets wiped, the Zerg just runs across the map and turns it back onto you. And we definitely don't see the Disruptor drop again. It might just be a standard air toss game from PtitDrogo or something of the fashion. You know, this is the map that we've seen a lot of players favor air toss on.
That we have, and well, we're gonna have to see what exactly happens. As you said, you know, we have some ideas, but those are only guesses. It takes experience to be the mother of all certainty. Game 3 is here. In the bottom right, in the red, your Protoss hero. He's looking good, but is he good enough to take a series off the top of the group? He is PtitDrogo.
And in the bottom right, started down 0-1, but has shown his expertise in that last game, looking to continue to go undefeated from Shopify Rebellion. It's Lambo.
So, you mentioned the possibility of Skytoss. I kind of don't like Skytoss, and okay. Bias Caster's going to say he doesn't like Skytoss because the games tend to be boring. But in general, I don't necessarily like Skytoss in this meta. Whenever I see someone try to do ye old carrier rush or anything like that, it just doesn't really seem to work out all that well. It just seems like the Zerg is able to grow strong enough because Void Rays they're more expensive. They're not quite as much of a ramping tool as they were previously. And then also, I mean, Titan, let's be real, you're playing against Lambo. Of all the players in the world that if you would wish to go quick Skytoss on, I don't think it's Lambo, especially now that Skytoss is marginally worse, or at least the Void Ray opener is marginally worse, and Lambo is still Lambo.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that back before the nerf, of course, Blackburn, where you have this map that you have so much dead airspace between the bases, as long as those rocks aren't knocked down. You know, if you had a Zest on this map, and of course it is Zest, he would go air toss on every map, but this would always be his go-to. And a lot of players did like it on this map, such as like Neeb. But it's definitely really just not as strong. And when you have, as I said, Lambo, he made the build to counter air toss. He knows the ins and outs of that. It would be very hard to make it work, but we've seen that PtitDrogo is willing to be creative. He's willing to mix things up. And I definitely feel like that's going to have to continue to be the story, because we saw how well it worked in game 1. In game 2, you do mix it up. It is still a bit of a standard, or a more standard build order, where you have an opening, you have a bit of that timing with the disruptor drop, and then the transition was very much, I mean, got damage done, but Lambo was able to find enough of a comeback to get the win. So for PtitDrogo, how do you continue to mix it up, or do you just try and play a standard macro game?
Well, for now, it seems like the standard macro game is the one that's in the cards. We have Oracles on the way, third base eventually, not here just yet, that's fine. And I mean, that makes sense. Blackburn, it feels like it's a map that's maybe a little bit harder to get shenanigans done with as the Protoss player. As the Zerg, yeah, you got room for Nidus, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it's going to get quite as possible there for PtitDrogo, but I feel like on the flip side, he may have done enough in these first 2 games of playing just zany enough that he's put enough of a fear of God in Lambo that he is not going to quite cut as many corners as he would have liked to in those first 2 games, and that may allow Drogo to not maybe build a lead through macro game, but certainly maybe be a little bit happier in his game state than he would have been, say, if he'd done that in game 1.
Yeah, and that's really the strategy that goes into playing the highest level, no matter how long the series is. But especially when you get into best of 5s and best of 7s, it becomes even more apparent in how you actually order your builds and what you want that effect to be on your opponent. Because of that, is 2 Oracles are going to try and make their way in. A third is on the way, and as always, the 3 Oracle opening, I think, is just the best standard opening for Protoss at the moment. It gives you the most utility available. And unlike 2 Oracles, where you're really just looking to snipe drones and then use your utility, the 3 Oracles, if a queen's out of position, hey, you can just snipe it down. You know, it's a lot better at fighting, and you're not really going to delay your tech to the point that it's a massive difference.
Yeah, no, and it really does, again, as you said, provide so much agency. But these Oracles, for now, they have, I mean, technically, PtitDrogo's playing a perfect game, but Lambo might as well be. That first Overlord that you lose, you get it for free. So is it even worth the 100 minerals? I don't know. That being said, Oracles have found nothing. If you want this to be a really effective opener, you're trying to get, say, 6, 7, 8 workers to just balance things out. As Lambo's got what are those, lings? Yeah, a couple lings on the bottom side, just forcing these stalkers back. But because Drogo has not really been able to find the damage he's looked for just yet, it has allowed Lambo to expand pretty much with impunity. He's got his 4th base going up now. Oracles will now fly in a couple workers. I want to see them rotate over back to the gold, because I believe they have enough energy now. They should be able to just deny that 4th base, but we're gonna have to see. And with the queens arriving, maybe less of a possibility.
Yeah, ooh. See Drogo there, wanted to go for the dive, but didn't quite have the HP on that Oracle that was being focused down to risk that end. This is an interesting transition. It's not going to be the blink. It's actually immediately into charge and +1 and the Templar Archive. So this actually is even looking like a much more old school style of getting that immediate charge, those immediate charge lots up with the +1. You still have, of course, the robotics facility available, so you can then go into Immortal production, and then you have Archons and Storm. You know, you're completely skipping the blink Stalkers in exchange for an army that, of course, will be just as useful later, but does take a little bit of time to build up.
That you will. And, you know, for a second, I'm looking at this, and the first thought that goes through my head was this build that we saw briefly, where it was a Void Ray opener, not an Oracle opener, but you would go Void Rays and take a kind of almost a fake third, or only gas or only mineral out the third, and you just go massive charge lot Archon timing behind that. But this is 6 gas. Drogo is taking his 4th base, as you said. Yeah, just moving into quick charge lot Archon Immortal behind this. And the big deal, because Lambo is going into a Baneling style, is Storm is going to be done very quickly. And that should mean that, well, Drogo is going to be able to take some rather nice fights. Oracle's now looking to fly in. Queen's retreating back to Spore coverage, but they're going to find a free Queen on the high ground here. Lambo not quite in range to make anything happen. And, well, Spores looks like they kill a couple more workers. Yeah, they get 2 more workers. Okay.
Yeah, so far 4 workers gone down. You also snipe a queen, which is always nice. Those queens, they of course build energy throughout the game. So just getting one down, Lambo has to rebuild that. It's 150 minerals that necessarily he didn't want to spend on that queen, but regardless, it's 11 drones on the way for Lambo. His +1, not done quite yet, but he has the Glial Reconstitution for that roach speed. The queen's pushing away the oracles, and again, this creep spread is already starting to get out of hand. PtitDrogo, again, because you go charge a lot as you're opening, you're not really going to have any ability to push out on the map with something like Blink Stalkers and clear up that creep.
No, you really won't. On the flip side, though, it looks like a couple Zealots found their way into that 4th base. 5 workers on the gold go down, so we can call that 8 in terms of mining lost now for Lambo before he's able to resupply. But here comes the push. Oh, it's effectively a queen walk. He will have transfuses for this fight. Bailey's trying to find their way onto the 4th base. And the Oracles will be able to clean that one up at the expense of all this static defense. And Drogo, he says, yeah, let me pull my probes away. I'm not even sure that he needs to, but here comes the push now from Lambo. 100 army supply, lots of Lings, lots of Roaches, lots of Ravagers. And Drogo does not have lots of stuff warped in just yet. Yeah, he has Zealots, but actually they're warping in on the other side of the map. It is all down to these Storms and Immortals and Archons to really make this push happen. Vials are not going to land just yet. What is that, Banelings? Yeah, tons of Banelings rolling into the 4th base. There's no static defense this time, and yeah, these are just a bunch of dead probes. They're going to split as well as they can, but there are more Banelings than there are probes, so only so much that you can do there. Pushing on into the 3rd base. Looks like High Templar falls, but the Storms land. Those Banelings die. The trick is, though, Drogo is just not at the army supply he wants to be just yet. He doesn't have the army complexity that he wants just yet. And as we see Stalkers warp in, Titan, it feels like Drogo has forgotten his blink. We do not have that on the field yet.
Yeah, and it's always a good option with the Stalkers. You're able to use them to clean up creep, to move out, and he has a good amount of them already on the field. But you want more Archons. You want more of these tankier units to help absorb some of the damage. Of course, there's already a good immortal count. Sitting at 4 is very, very healthy. But I said the complexity not quite there in Lambo. He has full agency on this map. Look, a massive swell up to the top. Also is going to be having a few units just sitting at the bottom side so that he can go in for counterattacks. There is still that Warp Prism on the top side of the map, now warping in Zealots. And we're going to see just Drogo continue to try and use this for counterattacks, try and deny this 5th, and that would be a very, very big catch if he can. But already Zergling is going to be there, and even the drop in the main, 2 Warp Prisms on the map right now, it's going to get cleaned up though.
I love the 2 Warp Prism style. It does force the Zerg and the Protoss actually multitask more as a nice Stalker warp in. Banelings are going to get, they're going to get a pylon and maybe get some of those Stalkers, but again, you will trade that. Those big Baneling run-bys are expensive, and if they don't go and wipe out a mineral line for 15, 20 Banes, that does hurt the Zerg. That is not free. So Drogo, he's getting closer to maxed out here. He does have his 4th base. He never lost it. That push from Lambo, it opened up a little room to kill some probes, but not enough to really do much more than that one. His Biles will kill Warp Prism number 1, but as you said, this is 2 Warp Prism play. But look at this. What is it? What is in that? Yeah, Bailey drops coming down from Lambo. Stalker's not really going to find that too quickly, and there we go. It's going to find its way out of vision just a little bit, but Drogo is just about maxed out. He has ludicrous amounts of Storms. He has Archons. He has Stalkers. And eventually he will have Blink, which can actually make those Stalkers useful, as they're not super fantastic right now. But Stalkers warp in. This Baneling drop looks like it's not going to get much of anything done. Plus 2 Stalkers. Yeah, they got a lot to say about that one. So no success there. Lambo looking to move in. Looks like some Storms were dropped, but don't really feel like they got much there. And Lambo is trying to sandbag this, because I think at this point we can comfortably say the army from Drogo is much better. It is much more expensive. So much more gas there, as the Storms are going to land a little bit early on the stage. The Archons look to just soak that one up here. Storms blanket things, but stasis traps, they actually make that Storm worthless. Does not matter, though, because that was still a fantastic fight for Drogo. We look at our supplies and realize the only reason it's actually Lambo in the lead is because he just remaxed on a ton of things. But Lambo's okay with this. He says, I will trade out inefficiently because I have a Creator Spire halfway done. I just need to prevent Drogo from finding his way onto the other side of the map.
Yeah, and Drogo, I don't think he's even scouted out the Greater Spire. He has no air tech of his own on the way. He doesn't really have a transition. That Storm is going to get so much value. There's still so much energy on these High Templar. But Lambo is just trying to buy time. Corruptor's now on the way. The 5th base is going to be going up for Drogo. But look at this massive run by into the 3rd at the same time. He's going to be able to blow up all those Warping and Zealots. And now it's going to be the probes that are in threat. The recall goes down, but it's not going to save anything. And that's a big spell now out of the books for Drogo.
That was cheeky, though. Notice he recalled to the same base he was already at. He says, let me just kind of blink these probes out of the way. Didn't work, but cheeky. Fun idea, I guess. But okay, here come the Corruptors on the field, Broodlords as well. And while Drogo has tons of Blink Stalkers, and they do have +3, it is difficult with all the Banes and all the Lings on the field to actually get on top of these Broodlords. So Lambo will get the Morph off. And the complexity of this army, we looked a minute ago and said, well, you know, the gas cost is so much higher for Drogo, and it still is, but that number is starting to increase in a significant manner.
Yeah, now that you've added Broodlords in, I mean, we should eventually see Lambo also add in Infestors once he has the time, and once he has the gas as well as the big thing. The gas are really going to be an issue for Lambo, and here we go. The fight is going to be taking a lot of Banelings used there on the charge loss. There's still, I mean, there are so many Archons. There are 7 Archons with this army, and Archons do quite well against the Broodlords. They have +1, though, so they do a lot of damage. Drogo, though, is going to look to continue to push this. The High Templar using their water balloons to fight the best that they can, and the Protoss player is not going to be able to push this location.
Absolutely. So now Drogo, he's got to run back home. These Broodlords, you say Archons are good against them. I beg to differ. You just can't get on top of them. A Storm's blanket the army coming in. Looks like Drogo will be able to deal with the army on the left side. Some of the Broodlords have taken a little bit of damage, but Lambo is just, well, excuse me, Drogo is just looking for that one opportunity where he can blink on top of things, but with these Queens here, it's a bit of a problem. We're going to see Storm drops, though, on top of this army. 1 Stalker as well. So much of the army of Lambo falling down, and Drogo now looking for the opportunity to get on top of the Broodlords. The Warp Prism trying to warp in right on top of things. Unsuccessful there. Stalkers trying to get the Warp Prism or trying to get the Broodlords on the left side. The Storms are going to be fantastic, but look at the supply. Archons are doing what they can. Storms on top of Broodlords because you need something there, Drogo. There's something that you got to be able to do, but something is not enough here. Recall coming on down now, but that was almost fantastic. But, you know, Titan, close enough. It's only good in horseshoes and hand grenades.
I know. Look at the supplies, though. They're not, I mean, the banks especially are not that big. It's 70 workers for Lambo. He does have this 5th base established, but the gold is mining out. You know, the 3rd base is starting to mine out as well as, Drogo, you can't really be out on the map right now. Sure, you have Archons, but you need to try and remax. You need to try and get these Tempests out is the big thing, but they're not on the map just yet. Now, 2 Tempests out, and that's exactly what Drogo needs, is this additional tech in his army to help deal with these Broodlords.
That he does, and again, resources lost. It's not all that significantly Protoss favored in this game where Lambo has been mining significantly more over the last 10 minutes. That is a scary deal for Drogo, but as you said, you add the Tempests on the map. Eventually, you maybe even get +1 for them. You start to hit that critical mass where Tempest one-shot Broodlords, and it becomes a little bit easier. But, I mean, it's clear. You know, we're at Hive now. Lambo, he can get Vipers. He can abduct these Tempests, and that is the counterplay he's looking for. But, of course, for right now, Infestors are joining the field. Pathogen glands as well, so they're going to have Fungals right as they pop. Lambo taking the advantage of the time that he has made by stomping Drogo's army. He's got the 12 o'clock base. He has that base, the uniformly contested base, one of them, and his economy just goes from strength to strength. That being said, Drogo, he's on 74 probes, Titan. If he's allowed to mine for a little bit, he will be able to resupply.
Yeah, and mind you, this 5th base for Drogo, it's completely saturated, unlike the bases of Lambo, which are mostly mining out. Of course, you have this top left, but Drogo is not at all going to be in a bad position economically. You actually see he's mining more right now. If you're looking at that income, it's close, but Drogo has the advantage. He's going to be able to rebuild his army just a little bit quicker. But look at this, Lambo. He's setting up spine crawlers and spores at the front. He needs to protect this 6th base because Blackburn, it doesn't have a lot of bases, Bayo. It has, I mean, roughly 6 per side, and then a 7th and an 8th that are directly in the middle and will be highly contested. Lambo, if he gets this base, though, that's going to be great for him.
That it will be, especially if you can take the bottom side too. But for now, yeah, as you said, Drogo does have it. Neural, oh, interesting. So it looks like Neural is going to be Lambo's preferred solution right now. But now the Tempests are here, and you mentioned that Spore Forest. Tempests were buffed pretty significantly, and we don't have the Tempest upgrade just yet, but they were buffed about a year and a half ago to make sure that they could deal with these Spore Forests just a little bit, and the inclusion of the Oracle as well. He should be able to eventually push this down. But his goal is not necessarily to push that down, because he has taken the 6 o'clock base. Eventually, he's probably going to take the gold, but it's not super relevant right now. And Drogo is just about maxed again. He has +1 air just about done. He's going up to 7 Tempests. He's going up to 8 Tempests. And this army that Lambo has built, well, we're not seeing mass corruptors just yet. He's got a couple. He's got 6. Six corruptors are not exactly what you're looking for here. The complexity of Drogo's army, once again, is looking pretty tasty, Titan.
Yeah, absolutely. 3 more Stargates being added on. There we go. Tectonic Destabilizers gonna be added for that additional damage versus structures. As Lambo looking for a run by, Banelings are gonna get denied, and look at this. Drogo has managed to establish his own 6th base at the bottom side of this map. Lambo is gonna swing up and be able to take it down, though, unless there is a swift response here from Drogo. Looks like he will be able to dissuade, actually, this Roach Ravager, or this Ravager Ling, from pushing it with the Tempest. But the real question is, what openings does this give across the map? Lambo, it doesn't look like he's going to push any other location. We actually have a Zealot run by onto that top base, but Spine Crawlers are there. And this is really the weakness of 11 Broodlords. They're not mobile, even while PtitDrogo is distracted on the bottom side of the map. The Broodlords can't really do anything about it. And now Drogo's just going to push. And the Broodlords, they have to respond. They have to slowly make their way on over. And Drogo's just going to find damage unanswered right now.
All right, so Carapace gets denied. It means these Broodlings are maybe going to be a little bit less tanky on the ground. Certainly means everything else is going to be less tanky. Good Fungals, though, on top of this Parasitic Bomb combo as well, but we need to chain it up just a little bit more as the Corruptors look to dive on it, and these Tempests are getting so low, but the Storms are fantastic, and the combo was not completed. Tons of High Templar. They get their Storms off, sure, but tons of these Tempests are low. They're orange, but they still fight. As long as they have 1 HP, they continue to find value. So into the main base, Drogo goes. Good feedbacks on all of these Infestors. The Greater Spire falls. It's going to be a recall now, and some of the ground army dies. But Drogo, he knocked down so much of the tech that Lambo has been using to do anything in this game. And he's on 5 Stargates now. 4 Tempests on the way. Carriers are on the way. He's got actually does not have +2 air on the way. We should see that soon enough. And it looks like he said, yeah, my Tempest days are over for the most part. I'm okay with that. He cancels them all. 5 Carriers are on the way.
Yeah, I mean, the Vipers are going to be the response to that, but he knows the Spire has to be rebuilt. There's not going to be a massive Corruptor Ball right now, only sitting at around 15. It's, of course, a very, very healthy count, but the Tempests, the Carriers, they're going to tag team together. You would maybe like to see a few more High Templar. You're only sitting at 3. They are all full on energy, so they have about 3 to 4 storms each. But still, it's the complexity of these armies. It's the battle of the spellcasters right now. It's going to be Infestors and Vipers facing off against the High Templar, and really the Tempest control of Drogo. Being able to keep these Tempests away from danger, being able to target fire with them especially is going to be so important, as both players are now maxed out. And Beowulf, we are into a full-on macro game in Game 3. It is going late. We're past 20 minutes.
You know, when this series started, I talked about it. You know, I'm not... You'll love to see it. Oh man, Lambo cheeky boy. He's let me long distance mine the gold. Hey, you know what? It's fair. You mine more minerals from a gold mineral patch than you do a normal mineral patch, and because Lambo has actually mined out his gold, he is stealing money from Drogo. So if we look at resources lost, it's still not incredibly separate. 3K in a 20-minute game is really not all that much. But if he's able to take some amount of money, those Archons, they get knurled. Bye-bye Archons. Look like Drogo may be trying to do away with them anyways, but if you're able to steal that money, it's great. As we will see the Corruptors start to pee on this, but they're gone, so not much there.
Yeah, it would have been nice if Drogo had been able to catch that big Corruptor Ball. Again, any trade you're able to find against the late game Zerg, you're really trying to get rid of the bank, because that's going to be the big issue right now. Lambo has built up 3,000 minerals. Of course, it's not enough to completely replace this high-tech army, but it's certainly going to be enough for him to be able to try and find his way towards a Remax when the big fight does eventually happen. That Greater Spire is being remade. The Carapace is going to be finished up as well, so that Lambo can finally start to have a bit more longevity to this army, and 8 more Corruptors being added in. The Broodlords are now going to siege the gold, and finally Lambo can start to be aggressive with these Broodlords.
I mean, yeah, but there's a lot of stat defense here. There are tons of carriers. Tempest have plenty of range, and they have vision on things. More importantly, we see the Broodlings go out, sure, but I don't know how much this gets done. It's not like Lambo or Drogo really needs to mine from this position right now, as now Drogo sacrificing some of the army that really is not all that relevant anymore. He wants more carriers. He wants more carriers, really is the story. And these are heavily upgraded. +3 attack, +1 armor. They are going to be able to punch through, and the minor amounts of Lings, I mean, look, it's Archons. The Lings are not going to do all that well against that one, so a great trade there from Drogo as he looks to trade this army out that he doesn't really want anyways. But we're going to have to see just how well Drogo can defend this gold. It's not super important that he mines from it right now, but he also doesn't want to give up that defensive position. As I guess some Zealots join this army too, running across. It's going to be a second Greater Spire snipe. Okay, sure, fine. Drogo is looking pretty damn good in this game.
Yeah, I mean, sniping the Spire again, it's just so annoying for Lambo, who's had to rebuild so many Lings now. That bank is suddenly gone, and look at this Drogo. He's looking to fight the army, but the yoinks onto the carriers. The one-shots are going to come through. The Storms aren't here to try and zone away those Corruptors, the High Templar, as Parasitic Bombs and Fungals go down. The Spellcasters coming through, and so much is going to fall for the Protoss. Finally, a Storm will go down, but it's much too late as Lambo collapses, and Drogo, you step too far. Lambo will get the 2-1. He's going to go